Welcome home, everybody. That is to the Conscious Home Podcast. My name is Blanche Garcia, and I am your host. I am very excited for today's guest. We have Pauline Nguyen, and I'm going to go into her bio and credentials because they are extraordinary, but I am extremely excited because I actually tracked her down on TikTok. I was mesmerized by watching her speak, and I realized that I totally resonated with her, and I think you will too, because she's an extraordinary woman. So, Pauline Nguyen is one of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs, but with a difference. She is inspiration with substance. She teaches with warmth and humor, telling her own story of what can be achieved through key alignment of thoughts and intentions. Pauline is a best-selling author and award-winning businesswoman, and her achievements are all the more impressive for her having escaped Vietnam on a boat and survived the Thai refugee camp. Pauline became a master of her thoughts and emotions and approached everything with an unshakable spirit. This self-actualization has carried her to prosperity while running the awarded restaurant Red Lantern, the most awarded Vietnamese restaurant in the world. Her unique life experiences have given her unique insight into the minds of individuals and businesses, allowing her to pass on the invaluable skills of self-mastery, courage, resilience, and grit. And I will tell you that it's the grit that really shines through when I hear you speak, and it's something that I resonate with because I always say that I'm very much a gritty kind of survivor. I always am like just going for it, no matter what.
Yeah, I think grit's such an important trait to really embrace. Blanche, thank you for having me. Hello to all your listeners, and it is my absolute joy to be here. And I love grit. Grit is one of my favorite words. I even love saying it. Grit.
I know. It just feels so good. You're just like, it's kind of like up there with moxie for me. Whenever somebody's like, oh, they've got moxie, it just brings to me like this, like, like I should be carrying like spiritual pistols or something.
Yeah, badass by design. I think it is very much about that sense of never give upology. People give up too easily, and the universe rewards the unreasonably determined. And so if we can train ourselves to have that sense of delayed gratification, and grit is very much describes those who have that growth mindset. Hey, the growth mindset being that I don't mind working for it, bleeding for it, fighting for it, not for days, not for months, but for years, because I understand that the outcome, the destination, that's not the prize. The process is the prize. Who I meet along the way is the prize. The different voices I get to listen to along the way every time I need to pivot. And what does it mean to pivot? To pivot is simply a redirection of energy, being victim energy or co-creator energy. It's all the deliciousness in between. If we can learn to embrace that every day, that's where true grit comes online.
It's true. And I'm constantly reminded on my journey that it's always how the journey goes, how you approach it, how you work at it every day. Are you going to approach it from a very stressed viewpoint and really let it ball you up in knots, which I have a tendency to let be. My lesson is always to kind of go in the direction, but always to try to relax into it and let things be and let things flow, right? And have an even-keeled attitude, regardless if you're up or down. It's very hard to do, and I'm constantly working at it. That it will be my greatest lesson.
I think also to give ourselves some grace, right? Because one of the questions I like to ask my clients and my students, and I know this of my multiple business partners and collaborators, is how do you worry? How do you worry? I know how my mother worries. I know how my business partner in one business worries. She likes to talk it out. She likes to go all around and then we get there. So I just have to be patient so that she gets there. Another business partner of mine likes to go into anxiety and he internalizes it and then he projects it on others. But when we understand that's how they worry, we can give ourselves some grace. You just shared with us your experience of how you worry. And if you know that, then it's giving yourself some grace. I worry through calmness. I worry through calm courage and of that somatic mastery to the point where some people think I'm comatose.
No, I totally get it. And what's interesting generationally, my mother, I tend to pick up and worry like she does. And I've always handled stress like she has. And I never fully realized it till I got older. And then once I became the watcher, obviously, I'm very aware of it. It's not that I can always stop it, but I'm aware of when it's happening. And I'm like, okay, let's look at this. It's a moment, it'll pass. And how do we diffuse this moment so that we can regulate our system? Because when I'm in fight or flight, flight, my immune system lowers. A lot of things do not go well. And nothing's going to go well when you're in fight or flight. So trying to diffuse that to give myself safety in that moment so that I don't externalize it the same way that she externalizes. And I see that in her. And it's so funny because as a younger generation in her, I'll kind of try to talk to her about it. And she'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm not worried. I'm like, oh my God. Like, you are so worried.
Yeah, it's a good question.
How do you worry? Well, one of the questions that I have is, as someone who truly mastered the art of self-mastery, what practical advice would you give to those to harness their own power and start a journey towards self-improvement and inner peace? What are some things that you can tell other people to kind of share that you've learned along the way?
Mastery is one of my favorite words. Why is that? Because mastery is an ongoing process. Once we've mastered something, or we think we've mastered something, we level up again and we level up again. So the journey of mastery is an ongoing process. But to answer your question, Blanche, I believe that to know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom. And so if we're speaking to self-mastery, we have to really allocate time to master self, right? And so one practical example is when the shit hits the fan, when everyone else is going into stress and overwhelm and, going into worst case scenario and doom, the master understands that if they don't have self-leadership, if they don't have self-mastery over this vehicle, they will literally shut down their intelligence. They will literally become dumb when they are hijacked by the hormone of stress and fear and all of that. And so the first step is to master the vehicle. What does that mean? We have the greatest regulator of our emotions right under our nose. It's our breath, right? And so if we can master the breath, change your breath and you will change your energy. Change your energy and you will change your life. And so when someone calls and says, we have a problem, we have an issue, immediately I go into my breath. I go into the breath work, the calming breath work, so that I get into homeostasis, so that I am aware and alert to listen to what the message that is beyond the stress and the overwhelm coming out of their mouths, to listen to the real data, the information, so that I can now realize what the issue really is, or is it being tainted by their emotions trying to communicate this problem or this perceived problem to me. And then, we do the preventative aspects as well. So I spend a lot of time out in nature. We are nature, right? We don't. If we can really get that, we are a part of nature. This human vehicle here, we are the microbiome of nature, of the natural world. And so the preventative measures are, grounding yourself every day, spending some time in the sun every day, watching the sunrise to boost our mitochondria. And so what we're doing is we are working this vehicle so that when the obstacles come our way, we understand that the obstacle is the way. And so we use every obstacle or every perceived problem as a platform to master ourselves a little more, and therefore to prove to our people, our clients, our students, our children, why we deserve to hold the position that we do, the position of leadership, the position of entrepreneur, the position of teacher, the position of parent, the position of, partnership and lovership and business partnership. Yes, we are leading from a place that we are leaders of solutions, but we're also leaders of sanity. So to know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom. Another practice that I do, so I've mentioned the breath, to absolutely default back to breath work, preventative measures in nature's medicine, and constantly I do a constant vibrational audit of the people in my life. I eliminate the unnecessary, the hygiene of my associations, because when I'm listening to those toxic people, or when I'm in the energetics of those people who are vibrating at such a low frequency, I know that personally, this human vehicle, my electromagnetic signature, my toroidal field, my magnetism is contracted. And so if I'm going to influence other people, if I'm going to magnetize and attract better solutions and better answers, it's in my best interest to do a vibrational audit. I don't have a television in my home. If a friend or a client needs some advice, I will really tune in to whether I will invite that frequency to broadcast into my home. I don't listen to the radio. So it's really the hygiene of my associations, my environment because we become our associations, right? We become our environment. And so to answer your question, I'd answer it with those three things: to master the breath first, so that we are in states of intelligence and homeostasis, the preventative measures of nature's medicine, and also to consistently do a vibrational audit. They say that tolerance is a virtue. I think intolerance is a greater virtue.
I would agree with that. And it's really interesting because the things that you just spoke about are things that I do all the time and I agree with wholeheartedly. I always say, because with the different businesses that I have, there's something always coming up. And I've learned that my stress levels, how to kind of look at them and say, okay, how do we step out of this person? How do we step out of this energy? And I'll go into nature. I'll be like, I have to go into meditation. I have to like slow down my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions so I can detach, so that the answers come to me. Because when you're in it, you just want it to go away. And you're just like, I want to put a Band-Aid on it. I want it to go away. So my guiding post is always like, what am I going to be proud of at the end of the day? What is the decision that I'm going to stand by? Not the Band-Aid, not the easy choice, but what is going to be the decision that I'm going to be good with sleeping? And it may be the harder decision. I just had to make one of those yesterday. And I'm like, yeah, the easy decision would be this. And that's what everybody would like. And it's going to cause the less issues. Everybody's going to be able to just button it up and not look at it. Or we do the right thing, which will be harder. It will take longer. It will cost more money, but we're going to be happier long term. This is going to be the right way, right? And so taking myself out of that. And nature, I agree with you, because it's like I run to nature. I had COVID last week and it was like the Mercury retrograde is retrograding and it's like a shit storm, right? And I'm like, I feel like I'm dodging bullets, but I'm like, okay. And thank God I have the mindfulness and I have the grounding to understand that I'm better than this and that I got this no matter what's thrown at me. But I literally would like be searching for breath, and I'm like, I need to get outside in the sun at this exact moment to get my energy back. In fact, I tell my daughter when we see rainbows in the house from like casts of light that it's charging stations. And I'm like, stand in the rainbow for a charging station, get recharged. And as far as the vibrational, going through the list and the people in your life and all those things, I have always been a big believer in that. And, I'm sure you have faced the same thing where certain people will say, oh, you're so cold for cutting this out. Or why don't you just let them hang out? What's the big deal? I remember cutting off somebody that wasn't the vibrational fit for me anymore, and for each other. And I realized this, and we were very good friends, best friends, but it was off. It was really off, and it was really pulling from our energy and my energy. And I just said to her, I was like, I think we just need a break. I think I'm good. I think we just need to go our separate ways. And if something shifts in the future, then we will come back together again. And at the time, I remember her saying to me, yeah, but we only barely talk now. So what's the big deal? It's not like we talk that much. I'm like, yes, but when we talk, it's harmful to me. When we talk, it affects me so much. And that's what I can't have in my life,
It's true. And isn't it interesting that when we declare our boundaries to the people who we need to, uphold our boundaries with, the ones who reject it are always the ones who would take advantage of us in the first place, right? They're the ones who don't understand it, because the mentally strong, the ones who have the internal fortitude, would actually say, I respect your decision.
Because I've had friends give me boundaries and I'm like, I respect it. It's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you for telling me. And, we will go on in a new way.
Yeah, I think that, taking things personally and taking offense to, those sorts of scenarios is so mediocre. But with the vibrational audit, those who don't understand, they simply don't understand. So the question really is for the listeners, how important is it for you? Are you a people pleaser who needs to have people like you all the time? And that's simply an awareness piece. It's not a judgment piece. It's an awareness piece. The question also is, how important is it to you? Perhaps doing a vibrational audit of people, of places, of events is not important to you. But for me, it's very important. Why? Because I need to be the best that I can be for my clients, for my students, for my children, for my businesses. That's how important it is for me. I understand the science behind magnetism. And if there is dissonance, I magnetize fuck all. And so that's why we are so highly discerning. And so, if a vibrational audit and all these things aren't important to you, okay, carry on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny. I've been in my design end of my business for over 28 years. And one of the things that I'm constantly told is that I will walk away from a project or client very quickly, and it could be a lot of money on the table. It doesn't matter to me. I've always said, I'm like, it's not worth my peace of mind. The money, the photography, all the things that could come with it is not worth one more day. And I really try to uphold to that. And when I can't uphold to that, it drains me so much. And sometimes we're in business relationships that we can't untangle right away. And when that happens, I actually am in one right now in one of my businesses that we're at the end and we're untangling, but it takes everything from me. It consumes me. It takes that much more of my energy to raise my vibration, to offset what that is pulling.
Yeah. And that comes down to the very pertinent topic of self-betrayal. You don't want to betray yourself anymore because, most people, when they have a nervous system that is so shot that their nervous system doesn't trust them. Their nervous system no longer trusts them. Why? Because they're forever staying in that shitty business. They're forever staying in that shitty relationship. They're forever staying in that shitty friendship without expressing their boundaries, without saying no more. And so what happens is our nervous system says, you know what? Pauline does not do what she says she's going to do. Pauline continues to accept toxic people, do these things. And so Pauline's continuing to lie to yourself. And so my nervous system no longer trusts me. And that manifests itself into stress, disease. And then with that, we no longer have the self-esteem. We no longer have the sense of self-worth. And so, our purpose on this earth in this lifetime is to, really evolve into our most authentic self, speaking with truth, speaking with candor. And so candor is this absolute commitment to reveal myself in the most authentic way rather than conceal myself. And therefore, I'm not betraying myself. And what happens? Then the nervous system starts to trust you. And then it starts to give you more health. It starts to give you more vibrancy, more vitality. And so when we are our true self, it takes no effort. It takes no effort. The effort comes when we are betraying ourselves. And
100%. It takes so much more work. Yeah, so much more work to just to temper it down, to water it down, to make it fit the square peg in the round hole. You're constantly modifying. It takes much more work. No, I realize I would normally 100% not give like a shit, but it's so crazy when I feel like the universe puts you in these situations whenever you're like, I'm not going to take this. They give you an opportunity to say, okay, are you going to take it? How are you going to take it? And it's a learning thing and it's an evolving thing. It's fascinating. It's all fascinating. So my next question for you, Pauline, is could you tell us about your childhood and how it has influenced your approach to entrepreneurship and spirituality? Because, my daughter is 4 years old and she's 4 years old going on 18. But I remember reading very early on that the first 4 years of her life will really shape her personality and dictate the imprint of the rest of her life. And I truly believe that. Yeah. And so I don't walk around her with kid gloves, but I'm very aware of the sponge that she is and the energy that she takes in. And so I'm curious, because of who you've become and the type of woman that you've become, how your childhood has shaped you.
Yeah, it's actually the first, I read that it was the first 7 years, Blanche, because when you go past that stage, it's at 7 when they start to have that object relation of saying, how I'm going to respond now or react is based on how you treat me, mum, dad, relatives, school, whatever it is. It's at 7 that they start to really develop that sense of self. And so to give a little bit of a background, I am a boat person. My father built a boat just after the Vietnam War and smuggled our family out to sea. There were 3 families, 6 children and 6 adults, and the women and children were hidden below deck, and the men disguised themselves as fishermen and left right under the noses of the communists. And we spent 9 days out at sea. We ended up in Thailand, where we spent a very difficult year in a refugee camp there. It was where my mother gave birth to my brother Luke. We were only meant to spend a few months there, but we spent a full year there. And in 1978, Australia finally accepted us. The government housed us at a hostel, and my father quickly found a job working on the production line in the Sunbeam factory in Campsie in the greater outer west of Sydney. And they gave him the graveyard shift from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. And so we came into Australia with nothing, right? And my father had to care for 2 young kids. I was 4 years old. My brother Lewis was 3 when we arrived to Australia. My mother also had tuberculosis. She was very, very sick. And so there was a lot of pressure, a lot of mounting pressure on my father. And soon he had nowhere to dump his anger. He was very angry. And there have been documentaries made of my family, and his father and his father's father were also traumatized from their experiences of war. And so he dumped his anger on my mum. And later on, he dumped his anger on us kids as well. Growing up was very, very violent, emotional abuse, lots and lots of physical abuse. We were made to work in the family businesses. My father was quite the entrepreneur. We had a video library, a restaurant, a cafe, an ice cream parlor, as well as a driving school. He operated on the side, but with the other businesses, we provided the child labor. And so I learned to work at a very young age. My life was work and school from the age of 7. And my brothers worked in the businesses as well. I wouldn't say I had a childhood. I was locked in the house. I wasn't allowed to socialize or do anything like that. And I love it. Looking back at it now, it's my anti-model for how much freedom and expression I allow my own children. My daughter is 19 and my son is 15. And so to answer your question, I look back at my life and I see it as my training. Mm-hmm. I have chosen to look back at my life with co-creator consciousness versus victim consciousness. I chose to see myself as the beneficiary of all the things that have happened to me, for me, because I understand the law of vibration. I understand that co-creator consciousness says that life can also happen from me, through me, by me, with me. And not an easy decision for many to think that it is. And so there's other questions to ask, right? We all have a choice. I chose not to suffer anymore because the victim consciousness gave me stomach ulcers. It gave me pain in my joints. I was continually heavy with armor, but to understand that co-creator consciousness gives us the lightness of beingness. And I now go through life with much more ease. That's how I choose to look back at my childhood, and that's how I choose to have it influence what I do today with entrepreneurship, with spiritual entrepreneurship, with how I teach and coach and mentor.
Yeah, no, and I think that it's an interesting thing. There's a choice, right? And we all have a choice. And I always say how you look at something, it can make all the difference. And obviously we've all been around people. I learned from an early age that, there was a lot of victimhood in a lot of people that I knew and how they looked at the past and how it affected them. And I've always chosen not to let that happen. And it's not to negate that sad and bad things happen, right? Because we've all been through them. And, I went through a very painful experience for myself in 2020. And I chose to work through that and to look at it as, like you said, I look at it as a co-creation. This happened for me, not to me. And what is the lesson in this? What do I bring from there? And, and so it's not that I don't allow the emotion of the feeling, right? Of the pain. You have to allow that to go through you as a human in order to process. But then you say, okay, now we move on, right? Now we don't make this our whole identity, and we don't let it imprint every decision we make. We let it be our power position for every decision we make. Yeah.
We all have a choice.
Right? We all have a choice. It's very interesting. And some people, I've actually had this conversation with, family members, and they'll say, I just can't let it go. I just can't get over it. And I'm like, well, you saying you can't, then you won't.
No.
The minute you say you can't, you won't, You have to change that.
And also, they don't really want to, because if you really wanted to, you wouldn't say that, right? If you really wanted to, you really wanted to. And so the question then for those who do say, I can't let it go, the question is, let's dive deeper into why you're holding on then. Why are you holding on to the holding on to? Because you are addicted to the emotion of anger, because you are addicted to the emotion of victimhood. Bitter pills to swallow. And so in my coaching, before I start any coaching journey or any specialist journey with a client, they have to fill in a very comprehensive form. And then they have to have an interview with myself. And what am I listening to? I'm listening to victim dialogue. I'm listening to resistance, because step by step, they might be logging on, wanting a coach, but they don't really want to. And so when I'm hearing the victim dialogue, when I'm hearing that sense of falsity, you don't really want to. And so it's not going to work. I want it to work for those who really want to make changes, not for those who think that they do simply because it's the thing to do. You got to do the work. If you don't do the work, you don't get the pay. So the question really is for those who say, I can't let it go. It's like, but obviously because you don't want to.
Well, and it's true. And I think a lot of people want the easy button, right? And the truth of it is that even those listening right now, I can just hear it. There are probably those listening right now and they're going, well, this seems very easy to say, but you're not going through the emotion, blah, blah. And make no qualms about it. I know that you and also myself have been through some pretty traumatic things. I'm not saying that we know everybody's situation and everybody doesn't know ours, but the truth of it is that this is the truth. You only have a choice. The choice is whether you do the work to move past it or you hold on to the security and the feeling and the home that you've made of just being like, I don't want to, or this feels safe to me, because it's all you've known. And that goes back to, I think, the first thing that we just talked about. The first question was, if you get to know yourself, you realize through awareness that there has been some programming that you started life with. And once you start to untangle and dismantle that, you realize that you no longer have to be that was something that is not you. That's not soul, right? That's just your experiences. You get to choose whether to keep going, holding those experiences like they're your backpack, or to let go.
Yeah. And you said it so well, Blanche, because the question now is, what is your highest intention? Not the verbiage shit that's coming out of your mouth. What's your highest intention? So if I can break it down, for example, someone who sits on the couch all day, watches television, eats junk food and gets fat. They can say, I really want to get fit. I really want to la, 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 la. But what's the motivation? The motivation could be that, and you mentioned some words there, the safety of being in their home on that couch, watching the television, not having to do anything. They're safe from the unknown. Their motivation could be that they need certainty. They are certain that if they stay on the couch, eat pizza, get fat, they will continually to feel this way. And so we have to look at the highest intention. Are you not letting it go because it's now become your identity? Because if you let that go, you may not have anything else to complain about. You may not have anything else to connect to. And so there's other questions here to understand what the highest intention is, because you always have a highest intention, highest motivation for doing it. But my rules for life is that I can only speak it if I have had direct experience of it. I can only teach it if I myself have walked the walk. And so, you and I both, we're not talking from places of no experience or privilege, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. And kind of getting to that, a lot of people look to you as a model of success. What do you wish that you had known earlier in your journey? And how do you think it could help others now?
Echoing from our previous comments, Blanche, if we can understand that it's not the pursuit of happiness, but finding happiness in the pursuit. We have a choice. And so choose thoughts that create more joy. Choose environments that create more joy. Create environments, create homes that create more joy. Your true home is here. And so joy is a very spiritual experience. Joy is finding that sense of peace, that sense of joy in the smallest of things. Go out into nature. I cry at the beauty of a flower. I cry at the connection with my dog and how desperately he needs braces, on his teeth because it's got crooked. So you can imagine that if we wake up and before I get out of bed, rehearsing my behaviors, filling my body up with the elixir of joy, the joy of how beautiful my sheets feel on my skin, the joy of looking out the window and seeing the ravens and the palm trees, the joy of how quickly hot water comes in my shower. So if you can imagine walking through your day with all these compounded moments of joy, do you think that's going to have a profound effect on your body, profound effect on your mind and your spirit? And so I really think that it's time that we take spirituality out of these woo-woo clouds and put it back into our bodies where it belongs. Can you choose thoughts that create more joy? Can you speak things to give people a sense of increase? But when we get to do that, we have to find out what brings us joy. Have you taken the time to find that out? And so the very first statement we made was, to know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom. Another big piece of advice that I would give, or encouragement, take time to learn more about yourself, to learn more at what stage of development you're at, to learn more about your human behavior, to learn more about your wounds, your trauma, why you do the things you do. Take the time to learn about your spiritual evolution. Can you take the time to be discerning, finding good teachers who will help you to accelerate your path? Take the time to do those vibrational audits, because when you understand that these simple things will really, really affect your journey of evolution, and therefore your impact, your inspiration, and your influence on the world. If I knew that then at such a young age, life would be very, very different. But everything that I said comes under the umbrella of co-creator consciousness versus victim consciousness, right?
No, 100%. And I would say that in my darkest hours, and we all have them, and we also have shadow work that I believe that a mirror is always held up to us, you know? And you said it earlier, you're a master of nothing, meaning every time you think you're a master, you get pushed and you get elevated, and they show you and they give you the opportunity to level up. And they don't give you the opportunity to level up with some amazing, beautiful option, by the way. They literally throw you off a mountain and they're just like, okay, bitch, fly. So usually that's how it happens. And in my darkest moment is when I've said, okay, Blanche, everything seems dark right now. Where's the light? And I start looking at the small things, right? Just like you said, I start going, how does it feel to wash my hands? The fact that I have water, how does it feel to XYZ? And every little thing starts adding up. And then before you know it, you find that space in between the tension, right? The tension bar, it's in between there where you're like, oh, wow, okay, I'm grateful. And when you find the gratitude, the vibration starts shifting, and then you start attracting more of that. But I am fully aware when I start concentrating on the negative, because I'm just like, okay, this dark, murky hole, this is not, we have got to get out of this. We have got to get our viewpoint. And I find that a lot of people, even in my own journey, have never asked themselves the question of who they are, why they are the way that they are. If everything was beautiful and wonderful, you never took a minute to ask yourself, well, why, who, what, when, you know? And that's the beauty of challenge. You know, that's the beauty of overcoming.
And another question we can, or another, 2mm mindset shift is, how do we know it was meant to happen? Our childhood, our training, whatever. How did we know that it was meant to happen? Because it happened. That's how we know it was meant to happen, right? Because it happened. Right. And I love that constant discipline of saying, you know, I'm here. What is that list of what I need to do? Do I need to go out into the sunshine? Do I need to do the breath work? Do I need to have that discipline, that list to go to? Because when you're in it, it's very difficult to go, what the hell am I going to do? But okay, all I need to do is go back to the list. What do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? And so that's a discipline. And I love the word discipline, right? It doesn't mean to be, completely regimented, and that's a very different conversation. But to be disciplined comes from the word disciple, a student of life. You know, how can you be perpetually a student of life and giving life to life? You know, have fun, go out, experience all these beautiful human experiences where we're meant to experience. And, you know, when you said jump, bitch, fly, right? And it's like, when we jump, when we fly, that's when we know we're always being held.
That's right. I was in meditation today, and it has been a challenging few weeks. And when I went in, I called them my soul team, and I called them all in, and I was like, okay, guys, this is where I would like to get some clarity. And I remember feeling in my meditation, I could always feel them, and I felt them at my shoulders. And the answer was, we're always with you. We're always here. And it's not that you lead this bliss life devoid of challenges, devoid of complexity and all of these things. No, that's not life. It's that they're with you. When you think they're not, they're with you. If you can just stop for a moment and pause, they're with you. And I really loved what you said earlier about creating spaces that fill you with joy. You know, at our very best, I think when I started in interior design, I was like, oh, I want to create beautiful spaces. But there was a lot more ego tied to it, right? Because I'm a Leo, and I say that fully, Leo sun, but there's a lot of other things going on. And then, I got into design, and it's like a look at me kind of career. And when it shifted for me, I realized that I really wanted to create a beautiful life, that it's not just material, but a beautiful life as a background, inclusive of material, by the way, because that's not a bad thing. We all love money, and to make money, I love money. So it's not devoid of that. that. And when I created Conscious Home, it was just the simplicity of it. It's that everybody needs to understand and deserves to have beauty in their life, no matter how simplistic. And it's going out in nature. It's grounding yourself. It's certain things that really like hit those lists that you're talking about that are the foundation of having beauty be the foundation of their spaces.
Yeah. And that creating the true home, the internal, because freedom is an inside job, right? And so just again, you creating the space or helping people to design their space, it's so important. And when we do this work, you spoke to, having more space before, having more internal spaces and to do the work and to not get overwhelmed. And there's more space, the more expansive, because we become more expansive, right? We're magnetizing this expanded heart space, this expanded energetics versus being in a contracted space where there is no space.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of businesses, I want to touch upon a little bit on your restaurant, Red Lantern. It's more than just a restaurant, by the way. It's an example of how to build a brand with soul. And as a soulpreneur, I recognize another. What insights can you share about infusing deeper purpose and authenticity into your business? And I think a lot of people out there are not used to the word soulpreneur. And so I think you're doing it beautifully with your business. And what does that look like for you, or how does that work?
So I have a startup as well. So Red Lantern, this is our 22nd year in what is a very challenging, fickle and competitive industry. Our credo at Red Lantern is to uplift the human spirit through the alchemy of flavor, hospitality and heart. I don't know of any other restaurant that has a credo like that. And so Tiger Per Chai, my startup, this is our second year now. The credo is that it is handcrafted by the tastemakers of Red Lantern, shamanically activated by me to activate the power within. And so we're talking multidimensionality, blessings on steroids now. My speakership, I'm an international speaker. I speak on the world stage to spiritual entrepreneurship. I've written 2 award-winning books. I wrote Secrets of the Red Lantern, Stories and Recipes from the Heart. I won Debut Writer of the Year for that. My latest book is The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur, The 7 Secrets to Becoming Fearless, Stress-Free and Unshakable in Business and in Life. So that combines my spiritual entrepreneur journey. It is a book about alleviating suffering and magnetizing human potential. So I tell you those things. Why? Because I've created an ecosystem that is an extension of me. Each part of the ecosystem pushes forward humanity in some way. And so a spiritual entrepreneur, or as you put it, a soulpreneur, we don't do anything that does not have meaning. I would not invest my time, my energy, my money in creating something that has no meaning, that's not going to push forward humanity in some way, shape or form, that is not going to feed into the ecosystem in one way or another. And so then we create this very palpable heart that continually pulsates this energetics. And what is all that in aid of? So that I, Pauline, remain in spirit and inspired to do my best work. And so we don't wake up every day with dread to do anything. We wake up every day fully charged, fully charismatic, fully magnetic, because every decision we've made to build into the ecosystem. And so I create a restaurant. It is the most awarded Vietnamese restaurant in the world. I'm one of the most sought after speakers. Both books I've written are award winning. I attract beautiful people. This is what happens when you create from the heart. Our heart is 5,000 times more electric, 10,000 times more magnetic than the mind brain. But when we can connect the mind brain and the heart brain, so everything is in coherence, when everything is congruent, it seems like on the outside that everything we touch turns to gold, but that's not the outcome. The process is the outcome. What do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? How do I create thoughts, create actions that create more joy in this present moment? Because I understand the work. The work is to have this instrument of consciousness, this vehicle here, be magnetic as fuck. We understand now the law of magnetism, the science behind all of this. Therefore, we make our decisions from a heart space. Our heart is the barometer for the future. And so from that space, there's abundance everywhere. We don't come from a place of lack. We see abundance everywhere. We're not afraid of hard work. We're not too precious, but we come from that place. And so what are we doing? It's self-leadership. It's self-mastery. And so you don't get to achieve those things unless you show up every day with calm courage, because we've now mastered the vehicle. We have resonating resilience. We don't need to shout. It just resonates and is contagious. And then that sense of tacit grit, it doesn't need to be called. It just is. And so as this leader, to magnetize more people, because your people will always follow and be influenced by the most calm and composed leader. And so we create that sense of calm courage, that sense of fearlessness, that sense of unshakability, because we see that every obstacle, every perceived problem is a platform for me to master myself a little bit more. And it's a platform to show my customers, my children, my clients, the media, people are always watching, that this is why I hold the position of leadership that I do. This is why. Because I'm now not only a leader of the solutions, I'm also the leader of sanity. And so we have to be leading from a place of example. And that ball of energetics that's continually expansive and that continually palpable is attracting more people into the orbit, And it's fun. It's fun. We're not afraid of hard work. But another question is, who do I need in my orbit to help me to get to where I want to go faster? But you're not going to attract them if what they're seeing from the outside in is someone who is not calm, composed, who doesn't show up with dignity, grace, and poise, someone who's not skillful. And so what we're doing, what I like to do, it's also the disruptor in me, I'm creating little movements. I'm creating, Red Lantern is a movement to uplift the human spirit. Tiger Pearl is a movement. The Pauline Wynn brand is a movement, and it makes life a lot of fun.
No, I would have to agree with that. I would say that similar to you, I have a lot of different interests that I follow my passion, but they're all interests that come from their soul-based, their heart-based, their passion-based, right? And when something feels out of alignment for me, I go, okay, so either I let it go, or how do I transmute it? Do I want to keep it? Does it have a space for me anymore? So like you said, I'm constantly doing an evaluation of what fits in my life, what doesn't. And it's interesting because like yourself, I go heart-centered, all my decisions, and everything's with purpose. And I think that people resonate with that. People always come up to me, and I'm sure they come up to you like
the right people.
Yeah, the right people, right? You attract your tribe. And I always knew that. So the people that aren't for you, they're going to fall off. The projects, the clients, the whatever, they're going to fall off. They're not for you anyway. I feel like, in this lifetime, it is our right to live our brightest life. And it's interesting because I had, whatever you want to call it, a vision, whatever it was. I remember in 2020, and what came to me was the most beautiful thing. I just saw all of us holding hands, light workers across the world. And just that our purpose here is to be loved, be happy, to express ourselves, be our authentic self. And anytime you inch a little closer to that, anytime you say, that's not who I am, I choose to be me, anytime you can do that, the vibration that offshoots from you and other people, then they resonate with it, they get inspired. So our job here is to inspire ourselves, to inspire others. You can't do that if you're living a closed life, you're living a small life. And small life doesn't mean like life without a lot of money. It just means you're dimming your light.
A life that is without inspiration. And that's what spirituality is, right?
Yeah.
To live your life in spirit and inspired. And you're right, Blanche, in my human experience, every time that I've betrayed myself and listened to the experts who are not expert in me, every time that they've gone, no, Pauline, don't call yourself the spiritual entrepreneur. You'll scare people because people are afraid of that word. That was 15 years ago when I first started my speakership journey. Don't write this book, or don't say this in the ad copy, say it this way. And whenever I've listened to that, I've not won. I lose. I lose in the long run. And so, when we've had enough experience and direct experience, we can say, I'll listen to you. I'll take that, but I'm not betraying myself.
Right. That filter has to be on at all times. And you have to understand that nobody knows what they're doing. There's nobody on this effing planet that knows what they're doing. And I remember that my mother used to always say, well, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. And I love my mother and I love her to this day. But I remember turning to her, and I don't know how I knew this at this age, but I remember at 17 when everybody was like, you're being rebellious and you're just this and you're that. And I said, I just know what feels right for me. And if I make a mistake, I would rather it be my mistake and not your mistake. And that's the difference. And I don't know how at 17, that's how strong I was in my own belief system, but it's the truth. And honestly, looking back, what I did, I may have gone through some, tumultuous years, and I may have made left turns instead of right, but I would do it all over again. I made the right choice.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said, oh, I don't know what that was spirit talking, right?
Right. I was just like, I'm listening to this voice.
Yeah.
I'm not listening to that. I don't know what this voice is taking me, but this feels right to me. So I'm just going to go with what feels right. And I have always done that my whole life. I think a lot of people don't listen to that voice. They go, well, that doesn't make sense in polite society. It's better if I go to the right school, if I do the right thing, if I'm the right wife, if I make XYZ. I think they think that they're going to get some golden ticket at the end. And you're just like, no, you just get to live somebody else's life, by the way. And when it's time for you to transition, you get to see that you lived somebody else's life and not yours. And you may have to come back and redo it. Totally up to you.
Yeah. And that's where it's so important to take the time to get a good teacher who can allow you to or teach you to understand yourself a little bit more. And so what you just spoke to is someone who is at a very earlier stage of development. And it's like a metaphor I would use is a 50-year-old trying to tell a 15-year-old, this is what you have to do. And listen to me, I've done it. This is the 15-year-old cannot grasp it. They cannot understand it because at their stage of development, that is all they know, they see. And so the best thing the 50-year-old can do is lead by example and teach from example. And when the 15-year-old is ready, they'll move into the next stage of development, being the 16-year-old. And now they have more, or they can accelerate. And so it's so important to take the time to learn what stage of human development you're at. You can't skip a level, but you can certainly go through levels faster, depending on your teacher, right?
That's exactly right. And I always think that I give grace to my family and those that came before me. You can only, in the beginning stages, in the beginning of development, you can only pick up what's around you, right? It takes a very discerning energy or person or soul to kind of look beyond that at a very early age. You're a product of your environment in the beginning. And so I give grace to those always that came before me because they're only operating at their limitation. And I remember understanding that at a certain point. I remember even when I told my mother I wanted to be a designer and she said, well, that's really hard. That's like breaking into modeling. I don't know if you're ever going to do it. And I said, well, that's because you don't think you could ever do it. And that's your limitation. And I think I can do it. And I think that to have that understanding that, you have to forgive sometimes the people around you because they're very limited to what their understanding was. It's amazing. And we're very lucky at this day and age that, for instance, my daughter gets to be shaped by myself who has an awareness that I have spent years to get to, right? But back then, years and years ago, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, they didn't have those opportunities.
Yeah. And look, having heard that story, it's my guess that your mother's greatest intention, sure, there was some projection involved there as well, but your mother's highest intention was to save you from disappointment.
100%.
Was to save you from failure because of the lens that she wears, And so when we get to the highest intention, the understanding of the other, compassion comes online, huh?
Right. And you don't get upset by it. You go, listen, you're only trying to do what's right by me. You're only trying to protect me. But I have to stand on my own 2 feet at a certain point, and you have to understand that. Okay. I feel like we could talk all day. So you've been recognized for your ability to blend modern modalities to Eastern mysticism in your coaching. What has been one of the most profound transformations you've seen as a result of melting the two? What is the biggest transformation that you've seen?
The rabbit hole goes deep, Blanche. Rabbit hole goes deep. I am about to launch my new program in October. The waitlist landing page is on my website. The program is called Numinous, Transformational Growth Strategies for the Spiritual Entrepreneur. And we were in the studio yesterday, and I invited 6 of my clients whose life has changed and lives have been saved. And so I'll speak to those clients. I have hundreds and hundreds of clients who I've helped. So yesterday there was Jane. Jane came to me and she was dying. She was dying of lupus and renal failure. She was skeletal. She'd lost her hair from her chemo. Again, she tried everything. And she'd read my book, The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur. And she came to me and she said, I need to see you. I just trust you. I want to be around for my husband, my children. And I said to her, I need for you to realize that it's going to get worse before it gets better, because your spirit is wanting to leave your vehicle. We have to do the semantic work, understanding what stage of development she's at, understanding her human behavior, understanding her traumas, why she does the things she does. Because we don't have business problems, you see, we have personal problems that reflect in our business. With Jane's instance, it was, and I can freely tell these stories because she's very happy to share it to the world. Suppression is the greatest cause of dis-ease and disease. And so we addressed that semantically. Somatically, I gave her a protocol to access nature's medicine, breath work to change her biochemistry, movement, Qigong pieces to massage and activate particular organs that were holding on to these emotions. And then, of course, the secret weapon is the soulmatic, the shamanic activations. When we go into quantum, we work with the subconscious. We access the field, the all-knowing field. And so to connect semantic, somatic, and soulmatic is part of my methodology. And she did get worse before it got better, but she showed up every single week. She showed up. It was very hard for me to watch how it got worse before it got better. Fast forward, Jane is now a sexy goddess. She's not, and she's like, my husband, because my husband has also done my programs, and we don't just live, we thrive together. We're building a life together. Her children, they're just this beautiful container of power. And she's lifting weights, teaching ballet, running a real estate management before she was a nurse, and surrounded by all of that. And so her life she's not just survived it, she's now thriving and like shining. She's shining, you know. And then who else came to yesterday? Emma. She is the vice president of a major telco in Australia. So she's very corporate. And since doing the work, her health issues, inflammation, stomach issues, all that has cleared up. She's got 2 major promotions. She's leading a multi-billion-dollar company. Her partner, Brent, has also done my program, and they've created this beautiful blended family. When she first came to do my work, it was a very painful separation. She was broken. And then the list goes on. And then there's Emma Scott, who was suffering from chronic rheumatoid arthritis, cystitis. She was in pain for 15 years, chronic pain in her life. After a few months, pain levels went down to 4. After 2 more months, pain levels down to 2. After 6 months, pain-free. After living with chronic pain for 15 years. And so the work, it's so difficult to say one, Blanche. So the work not only saves marriages, you know, I've assisted people who was on the brink of suicide. You know, it makes people flourish. It not only changes lives, it saves lives, because I've created a very comprehensive program. But the first step is to know thyself. That is the beginning of the wisdom of this journey. And my body of work, my life's body of work, this new program, I'm very excited about it.
And I can tell that it lights you up. And it's very interesting because I think that a lot of people would not understand, and it's not to negate Western medicine or any of the things that different people need different things, but at our very core, our very basic foundation of who we are, the things that we hold in, the things that how we ground ourselves, the everyday moments, glimmers of happiness that we allow in, those types of things in connection to nature, they're so simplistic. But if you get those things right, if you hit those things on a daily basis and you understand the foundation, you know, that's your baseline, it helps so many things. It helps solve so many things. And people they would say, oh, that it's that simple. And it's like, yeah, but you would understand how much resistance people give to that simple, you know?
Yeah, because we've been programmed to go to what happens when you go to a doctor? What happens? The fact that you go to a doctor, they will give you a prescription. If you go to a doctor, their job is to give you medicine. And it is Western medicine. It's allopathic medicine, unless you get a really good doctor who does, Ayurvedic medicine or homeopathy. But what you spoke to, Blanche, that's nature's medicine. All that is medicine. But people are resistant to it because it's, deceptively simple. Another couple who came yesterday to the testimonial shoot, Sally and Manon, they represent Australia in the national handball, beach ball and basketball teams. They are high achieving athletes. And I asked them, what was one practice when you first started working with me that was a game changer for you? And she said, Pauline, when you told us to go out every morning and watch the sunrise, like watch the sun rise and then jump into the ocean. Like try telling someone that, hey, one of my prescriptions was to watch the sunrise every morning. That is the most powerful, potent healing time of the day, to watch the sun literally rise over the horizon. And there are particular vortexes, there are particular spots that amplify that power, right? And so, to be watching the sunrise is absolutely safe, absolutely healing. We're boosting the mitochondria from the inside out. We're breathing the essential oils, the photosynthesides that the leaves are emitting, and grounding to the earth and jumping into the ocean, which neutralizes all these, artificial EMFs, because you're sitting in front of the computer, the phone, why we're agitated. Nature neutralizes all of that. And not only that, we're now charged with the elixir of awe and wonder and this profound sense of being connected to all that is, so that we're in spirit and inspired now. And now we're charged with this invisible sense of life force to go and do our best work. Tell me that's not medicine. But for those who believe, no proof is necessary. For those who believe not, no proof is possible. And so we pay no mind to those who believe not. That's why I only work with those who are open to it. But these are such deceptively simple. Why? Because it takes a lot of work to get up at first light and go out and watch the sunrise. It takes a lot of work until it's no longer work, right? But what would you rather be doing? No.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's, you have to just break out of the programming that you're used to. That leaves me with one last question. As a thought leader, you inspire many. Who inspires you?
Oh, look, every person that comes into my programs that do the work. If you do the work, you get the pay. If you don't do the work, you don't get the pay. Why do I find them so inspiring? Because they do the work. And then I sit there and I listen to their stories. And when I ask them, hey, can you tell me how it was for you when you first came? And they said, that's such a distant memory. I'm finding it really hard to go back to the person I was, because they've jumped multiple timelines to be where they are now. And so I will say, I remember how you were. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And now they're in this thriving space. That so inspires me. Why? Because now they're doing work that pushes forward humanity. Now they're doing work to evolve or assist their families, their children to evolve. And I love that, because while we were shooting the testimonials, the director said, Pauline, the pattern is that they all speak the same. They all think the same now. They're asking themselves different questions. And it was the first time, because as the director of the stuff that I do, my work has always been a mystery to him. But for having my clients in the room sharing their journey, he's like, the pattern is that they speak like you. They ask questions like you. Their tone, their energy, they're all shining. Everyone's shiny, and expansive. And he said, I get it. I get the potency of your work, but it's something to be experienced.
That's amazing. I know you mentioned Red Lantern. I know you mentioned your startup. Are there any other projects that you would like our audience to learn about, or anything else that you would like them to know?
I dare say your audience won't be flying to Australia to eat in my restaurant too easily.
I'm sure a bunch of us now wish we could.
Yeah. For those who definitely can sense energy, who are clairaudience, can smell, or have that clairgustus, can taste, you will feel it from sip to soul, how much power is in this chai. It's also multi-award winning chef crafted, so it has to be delicious. We've just launched our new recipe yesterday for libido.
Oh, very
sexy. It is very good, very, very good.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, if my work interests you at all, and if you're willing to do the work and it's beautiful work, do log on to my website and put your name on the wait list for Numinous, Transformational Growth Strategies for the Spiritual Entrepreneur. Life will never be the same again. And it launches October 4th.
That's amazing.
And then get my book.
We'll definitely go to your site. Honestly, I knew when I first came across you on TikTok, I knew that I resonated with you. You are a powerhouse, and I'm so blessed to have you on. I'm sure everybody who listens to this podcast episode will agree that they have definitely gotten an energetic uplift from this. So I really appreciate having you on. It has been wonderful. So thank you again.
Thank you so very much for having me. It was my joy. And thank you to the listeners for listening.
And everybody have a wonderful day. We are so excited to have you on and to listen to this episode.